Good morning, garden growers, and welcome back to this beginner edible gardening series. If you've already watched the first video, then you have taken time to think about your space, your time, and what feels manageable for you this season. Now we're going to talk about where you're actually going to grow. And before we get into all the options, I just want to say you don't need a lot of space. You don't need to dig up your yard or even have a backyard. You can start exactly where you are today. If you haven't watched the first video yet, I recommend you go back and do that because it'll make this whole part much easier. So let's start with option 1, containers. Containers are perfect for beginners and changing spaces, like balconies, patios, rentals, or anything that you can't make any permanent changes to. They're simple to start, and they're a great way to learn as you go. You can grow a surprising amount of food in pots. Things like lettuce, tomatoes, even cucumbers will grow in pots. But there are a few things to keep in mind. It's not the perfect solution. Plants in containers tend to dry out faster than if they were in the ground, so they might need more care and more frequent watering. If you're away often and not going to be home for long stretches of time, in-ground or even a large raised garden bed can be a lot more forgiving if you forget to water. However, if you're just starting out and you just want to dabble, even 1 or 2 containers is more than enough to kind of dip your toes in. Another option would be raised garden beds. These are great for small yards, people who want something a little bit more permanent, and anyone who enjoys having clear boundaries. And you can control your soil without having to dig up your yard. I think the biggest downside about raised beds is they do require quite a bit of startup at the beginning. You're going to have to either be buying or building the bed yourself and making sure you fill it with materials and soil. But you really only need 1 bed to learn a lot. Option 3 would be in-ground gardens. This would be growing produce directly in the ground in your soil. So maybe you have a backyard, maybe there's even a community garden area that you can go and do this in. Basically, it's ideal if you already have the space and you're thinking about growing long-term. I love this option because plants often grow beautifully in the ground, especially if your soil is decent. And it's easy to scale over time. You can always expand or add more rows later on. It does require a little bit more upfront effort, especially if you're just doing it for the first time and depending on what kind of tools you have to work with. This does not have to be your first step. If containers feel easier, that's a great place to start. So those are 3 locations where you could grow your food this year. But what we really also need to consider is where is our light and where is our water? Positioning really matters. If you are starting an in-ground garden or if you would like to do raised beds, you need to put them in a spot where you are going to get at least 6 to 8 hours of sunlight every day. You'll hear me mention light and water a lot in this series, and that is because basically every decision comes back to those 2 things. If you get those right, everything else is easier. So how do we choose? I would ask yourself, what feels easy to care for? What fits your space? And what fits your time and energy this season? The right choice is one that you will actually enjoy showing up for. Every one of these options work, and you don't need to start big to start well. In the next video, we will talk about how to choose and buy seeds for the space that you have chosen. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, let's grow our gardens together.